few weeks we dealt with the sacredness and the importance of Baytul Maqdis in our belief, and why the issue of Palestine in general, but the area which is Baytul Maqdis specifically, is important to us from a faith perspective. And we ended last week by saying we have a duty and a responsibility to our brothers and sisters who are suffering, a greater responsibility to those who are suffering in Palestine, because they are protecting, or they are standing in representation of the Ummah in its duty of protecting the Muslim land, and more importantly protecting Masjid al-Aqsa. But in general, and we know this from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the person who has no concern for the Ummah, meaning that when parts, groups of the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are suffering, and this person, male or female, a believer, does not have any concern, and they just continue living their lives without any thought, without any support, without even any dua for them, then this is a sign of a very weak iman. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said, honored the believer and sanctified the believer and created a brotherhood. In the statement of the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that believers are to consider themselves brothers and sisters. And actually this bond is far greater than the bond of blood, family relations, because those are temporary. Those are temporary, they are only in this world. Whereas the bond of Iman is eternal. It begins with a person coming into existence and it does not end. Now the question is, why do we not give importance to this bond? Why do we not give importance to this brotherhood? Why slight things will cause us to disregard each other? Small issues, or at times just not caring at all. The reason for this very clearly is a weakness in Iman. Because when a person has a strong Iman, they live their lives in accordance to the teachings of Islam. And Rasulullah ﷺ said in a hadith, من أحب لله وأبغض لله وأعطى لله ومنع لله فقد استكمل الإيمان. The one who loves for Allah and hates for Allah, they have completely removed their ego and their nafs, and they are only doing things with their heart for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they love for the sake of Allah and they hate for the sake of Allah. And then in actions, so their heart is only for Allah and their actions are also only for Allah. He gives for the sake of Allah, withholds for the sake of Allah. This person has completed Iman. So the closer you are to loving for Allah and hating for Allah, and honoring that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored, and sanctifying that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sanctified, the closer you are to completion of Iman. And we are going to look at a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that make this very important, so that we are aware of it and we make changes in our thoughts and our feelings and our concern for our brothers and sisters who are suffering all over the world. Any believer, under any circumstance, any difficulty, we should be concerned for them. That's one. Number two, we should make dua for them, because this is the greatest weapon of the believer, as we said. And number three, that we should support them. We have a duty to support them. It is not optional that you support. It is a duty, and we will look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in relation to this. The first one is a famous hadith, and I think we've mentioned it a number of times, that عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال نظر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى الكعبة فقال ما أعظمك وأعظم حرمتك ولا المؤمن أعظم حرمة عند الله منك إن الله حرم منك واحدة وحرم من المؤمن ثلاثا دمه وماله وأن يظن به ظن السوء. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma reported the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam looked at the Kaaba and he said, how great you are and how great is your sanctity. We all know how great the Kaaba is for us. It is the dream for every believer to go and stand before the Kaaba, not because of the building, but because of the sanctity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted the Kaaba. It is the first house built for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. So how great you are and how great is your sanctity. Yet the believer has greater sanctity to Allah than you. The believer, not the strong believer. Any believer, anyone who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is regarded as more important in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the Kaaba. And he says why? Verily Allah sanctified you once. He sanctified the Kaaba once. And he sanctified the believer thrice. The first is his life is haram. The second, his wealth is haram. The third, his honor is haram. Whereas with the Kaaba, it is only a matter of honor. Yes? That you have to honor the Kaaba in the sense that you do not commit sin in that place and you do not kill or take life, no fighting, etc. that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made forbidden in the haram. When a person goes for Hajj and Umrah, etc., visiting the Kaaba. So the Kaaba has been sanctified, but only once. And that's relating to the honor of the Kaaba, honoring the Kaaba. All the rulings in relation to the haram is to honor the Kaaba. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored the life of the believer, his wealth, and that we do not say anything about him or think about him in a bad way or evil way, and to not assume evil about him. A second hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that highlights the importance and the relationship between the believers and the concern that they should have for one another. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not envy one another. Do not raise prices by overbidding against one another. This is, you are not interested in something and you're just raising the price for the sake of making your Muslim brother pay a greater price. So do not envy one another. Do not raise prices by overbidding against one another. Do not hate one another. Don't hate one another. You are not permitted to hate a believer. Even what you can hate is their attitude towards something, their choice in something, their actions. You can hate all of those if they go against Islam or against your liking. If it is a matter that is not related to faith and belief, but you just don't like something, okay, no problem. But do not hate the person for it. Why? Because if you hate them, the most important thing in the believer is his belief. That is the most important asset that we all have. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. When you say, I hate this person, you are hating him completely, including his belief in Allah and in his messenger. So you are not to hate one another. And then, do not turn your backs on one another. Do not turn your backs on each other. And this is why we say, at the very least, we have to have concern. What this statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam means, and we will see it in a next hadith, that when your Muslim brother and sister is in need of support, it is haram for you to turn away from them while being able to support them. One is, you can't support them. You cannot do anything. You make dua. You can't support them. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam seeing Ammar ibn Yasir and his family being tortured, and he was in a position of weakness, when he passed by, he could not do anything about it, but concern, and then advice. And he said, Sabran ala Yasir fa inna maw'idakum al-jannah. Be patient, for your promise is that you will enter paradise, inshallah ta'ala. Do not turn your backs on one another. Do not undercut one another in trade, but be, O slaves of Allah, as brothers. Why? Because this is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as stated in the Quran. A Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. He does not wrong him. He does not fail him. See, the importance of this. Supporting your Muslim brother and sister in their time of need. That Rasulullah ﷺ has mentioned it twice. First he said that do not turn your backs on one another. Then further on he says, he does not fail him. Meaning he does not fail him or her when they are in need. He does not lie to him. He does not show contempt for him. Piety lies here. And he pointed to his chest 3 times. Rasulullah ﷺ, piety lies here. Why did Rasulullah ﷺ say this? We do not know. It can have a number of meanings. Number one is that you can only fulfill these things if you have piety in your heart. The amount of piety you will have will dictate how you will behave with your Muslim brother and sister. This is number one. Number two, that you are not to show contempt for Muslim brother and sister and to consider them lower than you, because piety is in the heart and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of it. And this is why Allah azza wa jal says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la yaskhar qawmun min qawmin. Let not a group of people make fun of another group of people. Asa an yakunu khayran minhum. It may be that those who are being made fun of are greater in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of their taqwa and because of their iman. They are greater than those who are making fun. وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنْ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifies that men are not allowed to do this, women are not allowed to do this. Piety lies here, and he pointed to his chest 3 times. It is enough evil for a Muslim to hold his Muslim brother in contempt. Not doing anything, you haven't done anything wrong to him, but just this feeling in your heart where you consider yourself more important than your Muslim brother. And in reality, think about ourselves sitting here. Do we not consider ourselves more important than everybody that's here? Do we not raise ourselves to a level that we consider ourselves more important? That we consider our needs and necessities more important than the needs and necessities of my Muslim brother and sister? Yes, we'll have some concern, but we will not consider them a priority. Whereas Rasulullah ﷺ, this is what he is asking from us. And this is the level that Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in reached. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Allah Azza wa Jal praises them, that they sacrifice their own needs to fulfill their needs of their Muslim brother and sister. Why? Because actually they regard them, they are not doing it as a gesture of generosity. They regard them to be better than them, and their need is more important than their personal needs. And then Rasulullah ﷺ says that all of a Muslim is haram to another Muslim, his blood, his property, and his honor. And all 3 are being lost. Our Muslim brothers and sisters, especially in Palestine, all 3 of them, their lives, people are being killed, their property, their homes are being taken, their land is being taken, and their honor. Because this is being done because they are Palestinians, because they are Arab, because they are Muslim. There is no other reason. It is a matter of, as they call it, identity. The last hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is a very dangerous one, very important to pay heed to. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "ما من امرئ يخذل امرأ مسلما في موضع تنتهك فيه حرمته وينتقص فيه من عرضه إلا خذله الله في موطن يحب فيه نصرته وما من امرئ ينصر مسلما في موضع ينتقص فيه من عرضه وينتهك فيه من حرمته إلا نصره الله في موطن يحب نصرته." أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I'm paraphrasing to conclude, that the Muslim who turns his back on another Muslim in his time of need, when his honor is being put to the ground, when this person, another Muslim, is being dishonored, and their sanctity is being tampered with, either through loss of life or wealth, or, as we said, the honor of a believer, and you turn your back away from this person. You are a Muslim, they are a Muslim, but you are turning your back away in their time of need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn away from you in your time of need. This is the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he will find that Allah will turn away from him in a time when he would have loved for Allah to support him. And the opposite is also true, that if a person is in difficulty, is in need, and the Muslim supports him, then he will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to support him in his time of need. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in a hadith, "Man kana fi hajati akhihi kana Allahu fi hajatih." The one who fulfills the need of a Muslim brother or sister, then Allah will fulfill his need. And the person who removes a difficulty from this world, from another believer, they make ease for them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do what? Will remove difficulties from them on the day of Qiyamah. This is a retribution or a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as we said, first and foremost, to have concern for our brothers and sisters all over the world. When we come to hear, and we need to ourselves come to know of the situation of our brothers and sisters, right? Because this is part of having concern for the ummah. Have concern for them, make dua for them. Because at the very least, if you've made dua, you fulfilled your responsibility. That, Ya Allah, physically I cannot do anything due to distance, but I am making dua for them. And lastly, doing what we can to support them, especially financially, because this is an easy sort of channel to us, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us greater understanding of our sharia and to enable us to implement His teachings in our lives.